Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back to a time of damp cobblestones and ancient whispers. Florence's book Market in the Rain, where every droplet seems to carry a rumor and every manuscript might be your ruin. The air smells of wet stone and candle smoke, and your cloak's already damp before you've even set foot in the market square. Above you, wooden awnings shiver under the drizzle, and a lone bell tolls somewhere beyond the tangle of alleys, marking the hour when the living are supposed to rise. And the booksellers do, too. You pull your hood lower against the drizzle, though you know you won't stay dry for long. The market square is a slanted puzzle of worn flagstones, slick and treacherous this morning. You're carrying a bundle of parchment, bound and inked, worth more than your month's rent if you're lucky, or worthless if the rain seeps in too deep. That's the game you play every day. Water versus words, and water doesn't care if the words are poetry or prayers. A cart rumbles by, its wooden wheels carving muddy ruts, and a barrel of fish sloshes water that's not just rain. You sidestep, not wanting to slip, because no one here will pause to see if you're whole. They'll just step over you or maybe steal your wares before you can stand again. Welcome to the medieval market in the rain, where you, dear listener, are the only thing standing between a soggy stack of tales and ruined. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing where you all tune in from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at the edge of the square just as the first cry of the day cuts through the drizzle. Books for saints and sinners alike, ink still fresh, a bold claim, considering half the volumes have been rained on since dawn. You shift your bundle in your arms, feeling the weight of the soggy cloth wrapping. An entire day's hope balanced between your hands and the indifferent sky. The stalls are little more than rough-hewn planks propped up by crates and stubborn will. The air smells of wet parchment and wool, like history itself has been left out to dry. You find your spot, squeezed between a seller of pewter trinkets and an old woman hawking dried herbs. She gives you a gap-toothed grin, rain clinging to her lashes like tears. "Good day for a story," she says, winking. You return the smile, though you're not sure you agree. You unroll your stall's awning, a patched piece of canvas that's seen more storms than you care to count. It sags in the middle, forming a shallow pool that already reflects your worried frown. You prop it with a stick, praying it'll hold. Historians still argue whether medieval market stalls had proper drainage or if it was all a matter of divine humor. Judging by the puddle forming at your feet, the divines got a twisted sense of fun today. You lay out your first book, a thin volume of herbal remedies that smells faintly of last autumn's rosemary. The ink on its cover is still crisp, a small mercy. Next to it, a battered missal that's seen more prayers than priests. You fan them out like a gambler's hand, knowing that here, fortune doesn't come from dice, but from catching the eye of a passing monk or merchant. The rain taps a steady rhythm on the canvas above you, a sleepy percussion that makes you feel both soothed and on edge. You glance around. Most of the other sellers are still arriving, their carts creaking and their curses rising in the mist. The fishmonger is already shouting, his voice a baritone wave that drowns out the quieter cries of book hawkers like yourself. You wonder if anyone here notices how the rain softens the edges of the square, turning hard lines into gentle blurs. A child darts past, barefoot and grinning, a ragged scrap of wool pulled over his head like a crown. He splashes through a puddle with the glee only children find in ruin. You watch him go, your own boots heavy with the weight of your trade. The market is coming alive in its own sodden way, and you are part of it, rooted in the wet earth, standing watch over stories that might yet find a reader. Even in this rain, the first customer of the day approaches, a woman with eyes like storm clouds and a cloak darker than midnight. She doesn't speak, just lifts a finger to a slim volume of poetry bound in cracked leather. You pass it to her, and she runs her thumb along the edge, feeling for dampness, for promise. She nods once, leaves a coin heavier than you expected, and vanishes into the fog of the square. A sale. A start. You tuck the coin into your belt pouch, feeling its weight against your hip like a small, bright victory. The rain keeps falling, but your heart's a little lighter. Because in this world of wet stone and sodden vellum, it's the small victories that matter. The ones that slip between the cracks of a gray morning and catch the light like a promise. The woman's coin still hums in your pouch as you shift your weight on the slick stones. A droplet snakes down your temple, cool and insistent, reminding you that comfort is a distant luxury here. You glance skyward, as if the rain might show mercy. But it doesn't, of course. It never does. So you turn your attention to the books, to the real heart of this morning's work. You kneel and adjust the rows of volumes, each one wrapped in care but still threatened by the damp. Your fingers linger on a tattered copy of A Knight's Tale, Troubadours and Dragons, all now at risk of melting into the ground if you're not careful. The parchment has already begun to curl at the corners, like a cat stretching in sleep. You flatten it gently, hoping the customer won't mind the softened edges. A gust of wind rattles the awning above, sending a cold spray down the back of your neck. You shiver, but your hands stay steady. This is the delicate dance of a medieval bookseller in the rain, half performance, half prayer. You dab at the worst of the drips with a scrap of linen, muttering that if the saints cared about books, they'd at least send a drier sky. Historians still argue whether medieval Europe valued books as sacred relics or practical tools. Today, they're neither. Just soggy proof of your stubbornness. A vendor across the way sells fish, their silver scales shimmering like lost coins in the gloom. You catch his eye and he gives you a nod. A small camaraderie in this weather, as if to say, "We're both soaked, friend, but we're still here." You tip an invisible hat in return, though your actual hat is more concerned with collecting water than staying stylish. Then comes the slow shuffle of your first real challenge of the day. The elderly scribe who always stops by, rain or shine. He's bundled in a cloak that smells of moths and mustard, and his breath fogs the air as he peers at your wares. "Morning," he croaks. Though you suspect he said the same to every seller in the square, he picks up a volume of sermons, squints at the blurred title and sighs. "The rain does no favors to parchment," he says, his fingers tracing the swollen spine. "Nor to those who sell it." His tone is half lament, half test. You smile wryly. "True," you say, "but the words inside still hold, don't they? Even if the covers get a bit romantic." He lets out a huff that might be a laugh, or just a snort to clear his nose that he puts the sermon down, then lifts a thinner booklet, a collection of herbal remedies, each illustration now a watercolor of blurred greens and browns. "The healers won't like this," he muses, running a finger across the damp page. "But perhaps the poets will." A mainstream historical fact slips into your mind: how medieval books weren't always treated as treasures to be locked away. Herbal guides, trade lists, tax ledgers. Books of every sort moved through markets like this, exposed to weather, to barter, to the eyes of all who might find them useful. And on days like this, that history feels close enough to smell: wet ink, old leather, the sour tang of mildew that no careful drying will ever erase entirely. You watch the scribe weigh the risk and the cost in his mind. Finally, he sets down the booklet and gives you a nod. "Not today," he says, his voice a soft apology. He moves on, his footsteps vanishing into the steady percussion of the rain. You exhale, shift your weight, and glance at your hands, pale and wrinkled already from the cold, but steady. A fringe tidbit drifts to mind. Some medieval booksellers swore by the practice of oiling their fingers before handling damp volumes, a trick borrowed from coopers and tanners. You flex your fingers, wishing you had remembered that sooner. Your next customer isn't a customer at all. Just a boy, no older than 10, who hovers at the edge of your stall like a ghost. He stares at a book of fables, eyes wide as saucers. You lift it carefully, holding it out so he can see the faded woodcut of a fox in a cap, a rooster clutched in its cunning beak. "Like it?" you ask, gentle as the rain itself. That he nods, then shakes his head. "I can't buy," he whispers, his cheeks pink with embarrassment. "That's all right," you say, and you set the book down in front of him anyway. "You can look." He does, fingers tracing the image as if the fox might speak to him. You watch his face shift between wonder and sorrow, and you know he'll remember this page long after the rain has stopped. In that, at least, you find a bit of warmth, one that the rain can't wash away. Eventually, he drifts off, leaving the fox and the rooster behind. You tuck the fable back into its nook, heart a little heavier but also a little brighter. These moments, these glimpses of joy in the wet gray of the market, are why you're here, why you endure the cold and the constant worry that today might be the day your wares drown for good. The sky remains an endless pewter dome, and the rain shows no sign of stopping. But you're still here, stall creaking, parchment curling, a lone merchant in a sea of puddles. And in this small, persistent battle between ink and water, between hope and wet despair, you find a reason to keep standing. The market has woken fully now, the square a swirl of colors muted by the drizzle, of voices that rise and fall in a rhythm older than the cobblestones themselves. You catch snatches of conversation in the soft mist, bakers lamenting soggy loaves, cloth merchants praising their wool as weatherwise, and a fishmonger who seems determined to convince everyone that cod tastes better when it's already half soused by the rain. Your stall's awning slouches in the middle like an old man with a broken back. You give it a gentle nudge with your shoulder, trying to coax it into better posture. The water pools in the canvas dip, threatening to burst with every new drop that joins its ranks. You know you'll have to tip it soon or risk a sudden downpour that's all your own making. A group of traveling friars in wet brown cloaks shuffle past, eyes downcast but feet quick. One glances at your books, lips moving in silent prayer. Whether for your soul or the survival of your pages, you can't tell. You offer a half bow, more habit than hope, and watch them disappear into the silver drizzle. Your hands find the edges of a particularly battered volume, its leather binding swollen and split along the seams. This one's a small collection of local legends, tales of river spirits and haunted bridges, of midnight duels fought with candlelight and curses. The rain has made it a little more ghostly, the ink blurring in places as if the spirits themselves are slipping free of their prison. You wonder if that makes it more valuable or less. Historians still argue whether medieval markets cared more for the content or the condition of the books they hawked. A shout draws your attention. Across the square, a cloth merchant is engaged in a pitched battle with his own awning, canvas flapping like a drunken bird. He curses in 3 languages, each more colorful than the last, and finally manages to secure the corner with a piece of rope pulled from his own belt. You grin, sharing his victory from afar. In this market, you learn to celebrate even the smallest triumphs. A dry spot found, a cloth not tied, a page kept safe for 1 more hour. A man in a fur-lined hood stops at your stall, peering at the titles with an air of disapproval that's somehow louder than words. He picks up a treatise on the proper construction of cathedral spires, more aspiration than practicality for most here, and flips through it as if hoping to find fault. You watch him carefully, noting the way his gloved fingers hesitate at each damp corner, the frown that deepens with every soft, sagging page. Not as fine as the libraries of Avignon, he says finally, his voice dry as the parchment used to be. You smile, unbothered. No, but closer to hand, and the price more forgiving. He sniffs, tucks the book back, and moves on without a word. You let him go. Some buyers aren't buyers at all, just pilgrims passing through, weighing your wares against some private ledger you'll never see. The wind picks up, rattling the awning and driving a fresh spatter of rain across your cheek. You lean out and give the canvas a gentle tug, tipping it just enough to let the pooled water spill harmlessly to the ground. It splashes in a cold wave, darkening the stones and sending a small cascade of droplets down the back of your neck. You hiss, but at least the awning doesn't sag quite as low anymore. A fringe tidbit rises in your thoughts. How medieval booksellers sometimes used animal bladders, stitched tight and waxed, to cover precious volumes in weather like this. You glance at your own stock, wondering if you should invest in pigskin or simply keep perfecting the angle of your awning's lean. The smell of the market shifts subtly, the warm yeast of bread mingling with the sharper tang of wet wool. You watch as a baker, flour-streaked and frowning, barges through the square, clutching a basket of rolls already speckled with rain. He pauses by your stall, eyes flicking over your stock. Got anything to sweeten a morning like this? He asks, his tone half hopeful, half resigned. You lift a small book of riddles and proverbs, its cover so thin it nearly weeps in the drizzle. Something to puzzle over while the bread's rising. You offer. He gives you a crooked grin, exchanges a coin for the slim volume, and tucks it into his basket like a loaf in need of proofing. A fair trade, he says, and then he's off again, leaving behind the faintest scent of warm yeast and fresh-baked comfort. You tuck the coin away and glance at the other merchants, each hunched under their own precarious shelters, each eyeing the sky like it's an unpredictable patron. You're all in the same boat, you think, though none of you are sure if the boat will float or sink by day's end. The rain is steady now, a patient percussion that soaks your shoulders and seeps into your boots. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, feeling the damp creep up your socks like a slow conspiracy. But still, you stand. Still, you guard these stories that refuse to stay dry. A small group of children dart past, squealing with the glee of those who have no stock to protect. You watch them skid and splash, their laughter a brief, bright contrast to the slow, cold drip of your world. You smile despite yourself because in the end, even in the rain, the market lives. Even in the wet, the words endure. And so do you. You shift your weight again, listening to the gentle patter of rain on your stall's canvas roof, your mind drifting in the hush that follows each passing voice. The market's rhythm is different on a rainy day, less frantic, more secretive, as if the rain itself has hushed the usual cries and bartering. You watch it all, the way you always do, not just with your eyes but with the quiet sense of the stories you're here to sell. Your ears catch the low murmur of two merchants across the way, voices pitched low beneath their shared awning. One of them, a tall, thin man with a habit of folding his hands like a prayer, speaks quickly in a dialect you only half know. The other, shorter and broader, nods along, his fingers drumming the damp wood of his cart. There's a language here in the market, older than the words themselves. A shuffle of feet, a flick of the wrist, the tilt of a head, all little signals that say, fair price, or too wet to bother, or come closer, I've got something rare. You've learned to read them the way some learn to read faces, and on days like today, when the air is heavy and every breath tastes of rain, those unspoken signs matter more than ever. You lean back against the rough beam of your stall, your breath fogging in the chill. A droplet of water slides off the edge of the canvas and splashes against your cheek. You blink it away and let your gaze wander. 2 stalls down, a man selling dried fruits is demonstrating the sweetness of his wares with exaggerated gestures, holding a fig high above his head like a relic. The fig glistens, wet and shining, and you wonder if he's hoping the rain will make it look even more tempting. Closer by, a woman selling rushlights stands on a crate to keep her goods out of the growing puddle at her feet. She lifts her candles high, calling out in a voice that's half song, half plea. Her eyes meet yours for a moment, and you both smile. 2 merchants sharing the simple truth that on days like this, everything takes twice the effort. You catch yourself wondering how many of these faces you'll see again tomorrow, and how many will vanish with the rain. Historians still argue whether these market communities were tightly bound or constantly shifting with each new storm and each new caravan. You suspect it's a little of both. Friendships and rivalries woven together like the threads of a damp tapestry. A young woman with a bright scarf stops at your stall, her eyes scanning the books with the hunger of someone who loves the weight of words more than the weight of coins. She lingers on a treatise about celestial movements, the faded diagrams of stars and moons half lost to the damp. You see the longing in her gaze, the way her fingers hover just above the page as if she's afraid to touch something so fragile. You lean forward slightly, your voice low and conspiratorial. Go ahead, you say, the rain's gentle percussion almost covering your words. They're meant to be read, even on days like this. She glances up, startled, but then smiles softly, like the first rays of sun breaking through storm clouds. She reaches out, and her fingers brush the page, tracing the water-warped edge with care. It's beautiful, she murmurs. Even more so in the rain. You reply with a wink. The stars can't help but shine when the world is washed clean. She laughs, a small, quick sound that flickers and fades almost as quickly as it came. She doesn't buy, but she thanks you with a nod and a promise in her eyes that she'll be back when her purse allows. You watch her walk away, the rain drawing soft lines down her scarf, and you turn back to your stall. The water's found its way into every crack and crevice, beads forming on the edges of your ledgers and slipping down like tear tracks. You wipe them away with the edge of your sleeve, feeling the chill seep deeper into your bones. A sudden shout breaks the quiet. Someone at the far end of the market yelling about a barrel of salted herring gone over in the wet. You watch the crowd surge and part like a school of fish, heads turning, feet skittering on the slick stones. You stay where you are, the weight of your books an anchor in the restless tide of the market. A merchant you know, a man who sells paper charms and cheap trinkets, passes by, his arms laden with a basket of wet-streaked wares. He pauses at your stall, his brow furrowed beneath his hood. "Good day to sell words," he says with a wry smile. "Even if no one wants to read them," you chuckle. "Good day to test who really needs them," you reply. He nods, his smile softening. "True enough." He lifts a hand in farewell and disappears down the alley of stalls, his voice swallowed by the drizzle. You sigh, shifting your weight, feeling the ache in your knees and the stubborn warmth in your chest. Because even in the cold, even in the wet, there's something about this life. This dance of voices and glances, of bargains struck and lost in the gray light, that makes you feel alive in a way that nothing else can. And so you stay, boots slick with rain, breath misting in the damp air, hands guarding stories that refuse to be washed away. You hunch deeper into your cloak, feeling the weight of it on your shoulders like a sodden embrace. Your stall creaks as the wind gusts, carrying the scent of wet earth and roasting chestnuts from somewhere nearby. You glance down at your books again, your fingers ghosting over the damp covers. This is the part of the day when the rain stops being just a nuisance and becomes a real threat. When ink runs like tears and parchment starts to weep under your touch, the narrow trickle of water snakes across your stall's plank, finding every crack and hollow in the wood. You tilt one of your books, trying to keep the water from pooling at its edge. The wind shifts, carrying a spray of fine droplets that speckle your face and blur the titles you've so carefully displayed. You press your lips together, remembering how your father taught you to always keep your back to the wind when you were a boy. Advice that's no less true in a marketplace of books than it was in a field of wheat. You pull a battered volume of Saints' Lives closer, fingers brushing the fragile script. The ink is holding for now, though you can see it beginning to feather along the edges of the letters. You murmur an apology to the long-dead scribe who spent hours perfecting those lines, centuries before you were born. Historians still argue whether medieval scribes were driven more by faith or by coin. Today, in this weather, you suspect it was something closer to stubborn pride. A voice breaks your reverie. A man in a hat so wide it might be mistaken for a traveling tent. He leans in, peering at your wares, his breath clouding the cold air between you. "How do you keep them from turning to mush?" he asks, his tone half curious, half mocking. You offer a thin smile. "Prayer and cursing in equal measure," you reply, and he snorts in amusement. He picks up a volume of herbal lore, the cover cracked and the pages limp from the damp. He flips it open, sniffs the air above it like he's testing for rot. "Still sweet," he declares, and lays down a silver coin that glints in the half-light. You nod your thanks and slip the coin into your pouch, feeling its weight settle there like a promise. The man tips his hat, the brim sending a fresh cascade of water down his shoulders, and disappears back into the market's flow. You watch him go, the silver coin warm against your skin through the fabric of your belt. A gust of wind rattles the market's patchwork roofs, and a small awning down the way gives up the fight entirely, collapsing in a sodden heap of canvas and wooden poles. The merchant beneath it curses and kicks the wet cloth away, his wares exposed to the rain's mercy. You wince in sympathy, offering a silent prayer for your own stall's continued stubbornness. You glance around, noting the hunched shoulders and quick steps of the crowd. The rain has turned the cobblestones into slick mirrors, each step a negotiation with gravity. A man in fine wool slips near your stall, arms pinwheeling as he tries to regain his balance. You reach out instinctively, steadying him with a hand on his elbow. He catches himself, nods his thanks, and moves on without a word. Your hands are wet now, the cold creeping into your joints. You rub your palms together, feeling the roughness of your skin. A fringe tidbit drifts to mind, how some medieval booksellers used to rub their hands with a mix of vinegar and herbs to keep the cold at bay, a remedy as much for the mind as the body. You wonder if you should try it tomorrow. A customer approaches, a young monk, his robe soaked through and clinging to his knees. He carries a small basket wrapped in oilcloth, and his eyes are wide with the earnestness of someone who believes the world can still be tamed by words alone. He stops in front of your stall, gaze flitting over the books like a prayer. "Looking for anything in particular?" you ask softly, mindful of the hush that's settled around you both. He hesitates, then nods. "A psalter, if you have one. Something comforting." You reach under your stall's edge and pull out a small, leather-bound psalter, its cover darkened by the years and the weather. You open it carefully, showing him the illuminated letters that still gleam faintly despite the damp. He reaches out, fingers trembling, and you see the relief in his face as he touches the page. Like a man who's found shelter in the storm, he presses a small coin into your hand, not enough to cover the cost, but you close your fingers around it anyway. "Take it," you say. "May it keep your spirits dry at least." He offers a shy smile, a flash of warmth in the cold gray of the morning, and slips the book into the folds of his robe. You watch him go, the psalter a small bulge at his side, and you feel a flicker of pride, because even in this wet, weary world, you've kept a story safe. The rain eases for a moment, the air softening as the clouds shift. You take the chance to tip the pooled water from your awning once more, the cold waves splashing your boots. You shiver, but you stand your ground because this is what you do. This is your place in the rain-slicked square, your quiet defiance against the water's endless hunger. And so you stay, hands steady, breath soft, watching the world drift by like a page half-turned. Because here, in the hush and the drip, you are both witness and guardian, of words, of stories, and of the small, stubborn hope that even the wettest day can't wash away. The rain's scent grows richer now, a mingling of mossy stone and damp wool that seems to settle into your lungs. You pull your cloak tighter, feeling the weight of water in the cloth and the weight of memory in your mind. Each drop seems to echo against the thin skin of your stall's canvas, a steady percussion that lulls you into a kind of trance. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to that rhythm. The market's chatter is softer now, voices wrapped in the hush that comes with steady rain. Even the fishmonger's cries are subdued, his usual bellow softened by the mist. The world feels gentler somehow, as if the rain has decided to be more of a lullaby than a test. You open your eyes and look down at the open book before you, a battered herbal of old recipes, each page a story of leaf and root and whispered cures. The ink has begun to blur at the edges, a faint halo of black around each letter, but the words still hold. You run your thumb along the edge of the page, feeling the texture of the parchment soften under your touch. A group of children dart past, weaving between puddles and grown-ups' legs like mischievous sprites. One of them, a girl with a crown of damp daisies, pauses at your stall, her eyes wide as she studies the colorful woodcut on the frontispiece. "Is it magic?" she asks, voice hushed. "In a way," you say, your smile soft. "Words have power, even in the rain." She giggles, her laughter bright against the steady drip, then runs off to join her friends, leaving a faint echo of delight in the air. You watch her go, feeling that warmth in your chest again, an ember that refuses to be doused by the rain. A merchant selling dried apples stops to adjust his wares across the square, the scent of his fruit cutting through the damp with a sudden, sweet sharpness. He glances over, raises a hand in greeting. You nod back, a small moment of solidarity in the storm. Historians still argue whether these markets were more about trade or community. Today, you suspect they're one and the same. A scholar in a weather-stained cloak approaches your stall next, his face mostly hidden by the hood. He carries a small writing box under one arm, the wood polished and inlaid with brass. "Do you have any texts on astronomy?" he asks, his voice careful, almost apologetic. You nod and pull out a thin volume of star charts, the inked constellations shimmering faintly in the low light. He opens it carefully, his breath catching as he traces the spidery lines of stars. "The sky feels so far away in this weather," he murmurs. You lean forward, lowering your voice. "Sometimes, the stars are closer in the rain, reflected in every puddle." He glances up, surprised, and then laughs. A quiet, startled sound that warms the air between you. He pays in copper coins, more than you asked, and you slip the money into your pouch with a silent thanks that as he disappears into the drifting fog, you find yourself thinking of how knowledge was once hoarded behind monastery walls, locked away from the wet and the curious alike. Now, here in the open air, each book you sell is a small rebellion against that old secrecy. An offering to the world's endless hunger for words, a fringe tidbit flits through your thoughts. How some medieval merchants would rub vinegar on their goods to keep mold at bay in the damp months. You wonder if it would work for your books, if the sharp tang of vinegar might be a shield against the slow creep of rot. You tuck the thought away, another trick to try when the weather turns colder still. You glance at the ledger you keep tucked under your stall's edge, a record of sales and debts, of names you've scribbled with a hand that grows shakier by the hour. The ink has begun to run on the topmost page, letters bleeding into one another like watercolors. You close it gently, unwilling to watch the day's work dissolve in the drizzle. A muffled cough draws your gaze. An old woman, wrapped in a shawl that might once have been red, stands at the edge of your stall. She doesn't say anything, just reaches out a hand to touch the edge of a book of prayers. Her fingers are gnarled and thin, the nails ridged like the bark of an ancient tree. You let her hold the book, watching the way her thumb moves over the dampened leather. "My mother read me these," she says finally, her voice so soft you have to lean in to catch it. "I'd forgotten how the words sounded. Would you like to remember?" You ask gently. She hesitates, then shakes her head. "No coins," she whispers. You smile. "Then no need. Consider it a gift, for the memory alone." She looks at you with eyes that are suddenly brighter than the rain, and she nods once, tucking the book into the folds of her shawl. As she moves away, you feel a quiet pride settle in your chest. A sense that even in the cold and the wet, you've given something warm back to the world. The rain eases for a moment, the clouds parting just enough to let a pale shaft of light touch the square. You tilt your face to it, feeling the soft brush of warmth on your skin. It doesn't last, but it's enough. A promise that the sun will return, that the world will dry, and that your books will live to see another market day. You lean back against the beam of your stall, your breath misting in the thin light, and let the quiet settle around you. Because here, in the hush of the rain and the soft rustle of pages that refuse to be silenced, you've found something worth standing for. The rain returns with a sigh, a gentle drizzle that seeps into the folds of your cloak and the spines of your books. You tilt your head back and watch it fall, each droplet catching the light like a pearl. There's something almost hypnotic about it, this endless dance of water and stone, of stories and silence. The square has thinned now, many of the merchants packing up or huddling deeper beneath their awnings. You stay where you are, a quiet sentinel amid the sigh of rain and the low murmur of voices. Your books are not treasures locked away in a dry room. They're companions to the world's weather, alive in every shiver of parchment and every dampened page. A man in a hooded cloak stops by your stall, his shoulders hunched against the cold. He holds a small, battered codex in one hand, its cover scuffed and darkened by years of use. "I've been searching for something like this," he says softly, his voice rough as gravel but kind. He runs a finger down the cracked leather of one of your volumes, a book of saints' tales that smells of rosemary and rain. You nod, understanding the weight of the moment. "It's an old one," you say. "The saints have held their ground against worse than this weather." He smiles faintly, eyes creasing at the corners. "So have I," he murmurs, pressing a coin into your palm with the gentleness of someone who knows what it means to lose and to find again. You feel the weight of it, a small, solid kindness in a world that doesn't always remember such things. You watch him walk away, the codex wrapped carefully in a scrap of oilcloth, and you turn back to your stall. A droplet slides down your nose and drips onto the corner of a manuscript, smudging a single letter into a dark bloom of ink. You trace it with your thumb, a small, quiet apology to the scribe who penned it centuries before. Historians still argue whether medieval marketplaces were places of chaos or careful ritual. You see a bit of both here, the careful order of the stalls, the wild dance of voices and bargains, the steady drip of water that ties it all together. It's a ritual of survival, and you are both participant and priest. A low laugh draws your attention to the edge of the square, where a jester in a ragged motley is performing beneath a half-collapsed awning. He balances on the slick stones, juggling apples that gleam with rain. His voice carries through the drizzle, weaving jokes with half-remembered proverbs. "Even the saints must laugh on a day like this," he cries, and a small crowd gathers despite the wet. You watch him, your lips twitching with a smile that's as much for the absurdity as for the courage of it. You know that laughter is another kind of story, one that doesn't fade when the ink blurs or the parchment curls. A merchant you know, a woman who sells ribbons and lace, joins you under your awning for a moment, her cheeks red from the cold. "The rain's good for nothing," she says with a wry grin, wringing out her scarf. You chuckle. "It keeps the dust down," you offer. She laughs, and for a moment, the market feels warmer. "True enough," she says, and then she's off again, weaving through the puddles with her basket of color like a promise of spring in the gray. You turn back to your books, adjusting the volumes so the driest ones are at the edges, the most delicate at the heart of the stall. Each movement is careful, deliberate, a small defiance against the slow creep of moisture. You wipe a drop from the corner of a manuscript. Your touch is gentle as a prayer. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. In some towns, booksellers would pay boys to run ahead of storms, warning them of coming rain so they could save their stock. You smile at the thought, imagining a boy with a wooden whistle darting through the market. His call a song of survival. A young girl with hair like wet straw stops in front of your stall, her eyes wide as she studies the titles. "Are they all stories?" she asks, her voice as soft as the rain. "All of them," you say. "Some for learning, some for dreaming." She hesitates, then points to a small book of riddles. "Can I hear one?" You grin. "Of course." You flip the book open, the pages damp but still legible, and read aloud. "I am taken from a mine and shut up in a wooden case, from which I am never released, and yet I am used by almost everyone. What am I?" She frowns in thought, then giggles. "A pencil," she declares triumphantly. "Close," you say, laughing softly. "It's lead." She beams at you, and for a moment, the rain doesn't matter at all as she skips away. You tuck the book back into its nook, feeling a quiet pride settle over your shoulders. Because this is what you do. This is what you've always done. In the damp and the cold, in the laughter and the hush, you guard the words that shape the world, one wet page at a time. You shift your stance, rolling your shoulders against the chill, and take a deep breath of the rain-sweet air. The market is still alive around you. Flickering lanterns, damp wool, the low, steady music of water on stone. And in this quiet, dripping world, you stand watch over stories that refuse to be washed away. The afternoon deepens, and with it the weight of the gray sky presses closer. You feel it in your shoulders, the constant pull of damp air and tired bones. Yet still, you stay rooted in the small square of your stall, as though your feet have found some secret thread tying you to this patch of cobblestone and puddle. A gust of wind sends a shiver down your spine, rattling the awning above like a tambourine of rain. You glance up, half expecting the canvas to give way entirely, but it holds, just barely. The rhythm of droplets pattering against it becomes a kind of heartbeat, a steady reminder that you're alive and the world is still turning. Even if the sun is nowhere to be seen, a man in a cloak the color of storm clouds pauses at your stall, his fingers drumming on the edge of the wooden plank. He eyes a small manuscript of folk songs, its cover worn thin by years of careful thumbs. "A ballad to chase the rain away?" he muses, his voice low and wry. "Or to match its melody?" You reply, offering a faint smile. He nods thoughtfully and flips the cover open, his eyes scanning the first few lines as the parchment crinkles softly. He hums under his breath, a single searching note that carries the smell of wet stone and old stories. Then he tucks the book under his cloak, pressing a silver penny into your hand without a word. You close your fingers around it, feeling the cold bite of the metal against your skin. A small anchor in the endless damp. Historians still argue whether music or words held more sway in medieval life, but you suspect they were always intertwined. Two halves of the same spell that kept the night at bay. You glance to the side and see the old herb seller, her stall a fragrant riot of rosemary and thyme. the greens and golds bright even in the muted light. She catches your eye and winks, holding up a sprig of sage as though to ward off the worst of the weather. You bow your head in return, a silent exchange that feels older than the stones beneath your boots. A fringe tidbit flits through your thoughts. Some believe that rainwater caught in the folds of a manuscript's page held a bit of the storm's spirit, lending the words a whisper of magic. You wonder if the damp pages in front of you might hold a little of that power, each droplet a charm against the silence of forgetting. A young boy in a too large tunic pauses to stare at a tattered copy of Aesop's fables, the woodcuts blurred but still full of quiet wonder. He glances up at you, his eyes bright with the same question you've seen 100 times today. "May I?" You nod, and he grins, flipping the cover open with a care that belies his small, grubby hands. He mouths the words as he reads, lips shaping each one as if tasting it for the first time. When he finally looks up, he whispers, "Do the fox and the crow still speak if the pages are wet?" You lean forward, your voice gentle. "They'll always speak, if you're willing to listen." He nods, eyes solemn in the gray light, and scurries away with a whispered thanks, leaving the book behind but carrying the story with him. You watch him go, and for a moment, the weight of the damp and the ache in your bones seem almost worth it. The rain softens for a moment, a hush that settles over the square like a held breath. The smell of wet earth and wood smoke lingers, curling around your senses like a lullaby. You close your eyes, letting it wash over you, a fleeting peace in the chaos of the market. The woman approaches, her hands wrapped in a scarf to keep them warm. She points to a small book of medicinal charms, its pages stiff with damp but still legible. "For my mother," she says softly. "She believes in these things." You nod and wrap it in a scrap of linen, the weave rough and familiar under your fingers. She presses a few copper coins into your palm. More than enough, and you watch her walk away, the book held close against her chest as though it were a talisman. You wipe your hands on your cloak, feeling the cold seep through the wool to your skin. The market's murmur has grown quieter now, the foot traffic thinning as the light fades. Even the fishmonger's calls have grown hoarse, his voice lost in the wet air. You lean on the edge of your stall, your breath fogging in the chill, and think of all the voices that have passed you by today, of laughter and bargains, of whispered secrets and silent prayers. Historians still argue whether the medieval marketplace was a place of trade or of tales, but you know it was always both. Each coin exchanged is a story, each word bartered a fragment of the world. The last customer of the hour approaches, a stooped old man in a cloak patched so many times it's more patched than cloth. He doesn't say a word, just points at a small, water-stained booklet of homilies. You pass it to him, and he leaves a single brass token on your stall. It's not much, but you take it with a nod, watching him shuffle away into the deepening dusk. You close your eyes again, the rain's rhythm filling your ears like a quiet hymn. And in that hush, you find a kind of comfort, because even as the light fades and the wet grows colder, the stories remain. Each page, each breath, a promise that the rain can never wash them all away. The rain grows insistent, its soft patter now a constant, steady drum that soaks every cloak and sleeve in the square. You pull the edges of your own cloak closer around your shoulders, the weight of damp wool pressing you closer to the stall. Your breath plumes in the chill air, a small, defiant cloud against the drizzle. You watch as the puddles spread, creeping outward like ink stains on old parchment. Each step you take is a negotiation, your boots slipping on the slick stone. You catch yourself more than once, fingers gripping the edge of your stall, and each time you do, you mutter a quiet curse that might be a prayer. Historians still argue whether medieval curses were closer to magic or mere habit. Today, you suspect it's both. A tall woman in a cloak of deep green stops at your stall, her face hidden in the shadow of her hood. She lifts a hand, pale and slender, to touch the cover of a small devotional, its leather puckered with water but the gilt letters still shining faintly. "This one?" she asks, her voice quiet, the words caught in the hush of the rain. You nod, fingers brushing the edge of the book as you pass it to her. She flips it open, the damp pages sighing under her touch. "The words hold," she says softly, "even in the rain." You smile, and she tucks a coin into your hand, a silent exchange that feels almost like a benediction. She moves on, vanishing into the drifting mist that wraps the square like a shroud. You watch her go, and then you turn back to your stall, adjusting the volumes so the driest ones face outward. Your hands are numb, fingertips stiff from the cold, but you move with a careful grace born of habit and need. A jolt of laughter breaks the quiet, and you turn to see a group of apprentices chasing each other around a barrel of rainwater, their boots sending up small waves that shimmer in the gray light. One of them slips and nearly falls, and the others grab him, their laughter a bright note in the damp gloom. You smile, a small, private flicker of warmth in your chest. Even in the wet and the cold, the world finds ways to play. A merchant you've known for years limps by, a basket of herbs slung over his shoulder. He nods at you, his hair dripping rain, and says, "The sky has a long memory today." You nod back, your breath misting between you, and he vanishes down the line of stalls like a wraith made of wet wool and old stories. A fringe tidbit surfaces in your mind. How some medieval booksellers claimed that damp weather was the best time to trade, that the rain softened buyers' hearts as surely as it softened parchment. You chuckle to yourself, watching a man haggle for a page of Psalms with a determination born more of hope than sense. The fishmonger's stall down the way is a blur of scales and rain, his voice grown hoarse but still rising above the hush. "Fresh, even fresher in the rain," he crows, his face red and his hands slick with water and fish oil. You grin, tipping an imaginary hat to him, and he grins back, two old veterans of the storm. A young scribe, ink-stained fingers trembling in the cold, stops at your stall and asks after a particular treatise, a commentary on Pliny, half forgotten and half revered in these damp streets. You pull it out from beneath the heavier tomes, careful of the water that has crept into the spine. He takes it in his hands, his eyes bright despite the chill, and you see the hunger there, the need for knowledge, for something solid and sure in a world that feels as fluid as the rain. He pays in small coins, each one warm from his pocket, and you tuck them away with a nod. "Keep it dry," you warn, and he laughs, a breathless, hopeful sound. "I'll try," he promises, and he hurries off, the treatise clutched to his chest like a lifeline. The light begins to fade, the rain turning the square into a soft, muted painting of grays and browns and the glimmer of brass in a lantern's glow. You lean forward, breathing deep the scent of wet stone and old parchment, and you feel the slow thrum of your own heartbeat beneath the layers of wool and water. The last customer of this hour is a friar with a stoop in his shoulders and a kindness in his eyes. He pauses at your stall, fingers brushing the edge of a psalter that smells faintly of rose oil and damp wood. "For my prayers," he says softly, and you hand it to him without a word. He leaves behind a coin and a blessing, and you watch him disappear into the drifting mist, his form blurring like a memory. You tip the edge of your awning, letting the water pour off in a small, rushing waterfall that splashes across the stones. The puddles ripple, the droplets blending into each other like the pages of a book gone soft in the rain. And you stand there, hands steady, breath calm, guarding these words and these stories against the endless, gentle hunger of the rain. The sky has grown darker still, as if dusk has decided to arrive early just to see the market's slow surrender to the rain. Lanterns flicker to life along the edges of the square, their glow soft and wavering in the damp air. You watch them sway, their yellow light reflected in the puddles at your feet like miniature moons. You lean into the stall, your back pressed against the rough wood, and for a moment you close your eyes, listening. The patter of rain has become a kind of music, its soft rhythm threading through the calls of merchants and the creak of carts being packed away. It's a melody you know well, one that has accompanied you through countless market days, some bright and busy, others gray and sodden like this one. You open your eyes and catch sight of a young girl huddled under her mother's cloak, her eyes wide as she watches a juggler toss apples in the rain's gentle dance. The fruit gleams in the lantern light, arcs of red and green against the murky backdrop. The girl's lips part in a soft gasp of wonder, and for a moment the wet cold seems to fade around her. You smile, warmed by her quiet delight. That a fringe tidbit rises in your thoughts. How some medieval towns believed the rain carried spirits of the dead, drifting through the streets to watch the living. You wonder if that's true today, if the mist around the square holds more than water, if every drop carries a memory or a whispered story. You like the idea of it, of history itself drifting down to watch you trade words for coins in the drizzle. A scholar in a cloak lined with fur stops by, his beard beaded with water. He eyes a volume of herbal remedies, its pages swollen with damp. Even in this weather, he says, voice dry as parchment, these pages hold more comfort than a fire. True, you reply, but a fire would be welcome too. He laughs, a soft, rolling sound, and lays down a copper coin, tucking the book beneath his arm with a reverence that makes you nod in quiet approval. You watch him vanish into the drifting fog, and you tuck the coin into your pouch, its weight a small promise that even in the wet, there is still value here. The rain finds every gap, every seam in the awning, and you feel each droplet as a cold kiss against your neck. You shiver, but you stand firm, adjusting the books to keep the worst of the wet at bay. Your fingers are wrinkled and pale, and you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. But the thought fades as a man in a red hood approaches, his boots splashing in the puddles. He stops, squints at the books, and asks, "Any tales of love to warm a heart in this chill?" His tone is half jest, but his eyes are searching. You pull out a small volume of courtly poems, the verses faded but still legible. "Here," you say, "for those who believe even the rain can't dampen love." He grins, a flash of white in the gray, and takes it with a grateful nod. "A fair trade," he says, slipping a coin into your hand. "May the words keep the cold at bay." Historians still argue whether medieval love was more practical or poetic, if marriages were made for coin or for whispered promises. But here, in the hush of the rain and the soft flicker of lanterns, it feels like both truths can live side by side. A sudden gust sends a shiver through the square, the awnings billowing and the lanterns flickering as the rain falls harder, colder. You hunch your shoulders, pulling your cloak tighter, but your eyes stay on the books, the fragile cargo that is your livelihood and your legacy. A small boy with a basket of apples stops to watch you, his eyes bright beneath the brim of a hood too big for his head. You offer him a tired smile. "Trade you a story for an apple," you say, and he laughs, pulling a bright red fruit from his basket and setting it on the edge of your stall. You pass him a tiny volume of riddles in return, the parchment soft and damp but the words still clear. He runs off, apple in one hand and book in the other, and you bite into the fruit, the sweet crunch a small defiance against the wet chill that seems determined to swallow the day. The rain begins to slow, each drop falling with more weight, more pause between the drips. The market quiets, the voices hushed and the carts now half shuttered. You take a deep breath of the wet air, the scent of earth and ink and damp will filling your lungs. You glance down at the books before you, their pages stubbornly clinging to life despite the wet. You run a finger along the spine of a battered psalter, feeling the texture of the leather soft and worn. You whisper a small vow to it, just one more day, one more market, and then perhaps the sun will come. The last of the light fades from the sky, the square now a tapestry of flickering lanterns and the soft gleam of rain-slicked stone. And in that quiet you stand, a single figure among many, your breath slow and steady, your hands cradling stories that refuse to be silenced. Because in the end, even the rain must sleep. Night has begun to settle its cloak over the market square, the soft blue of twilight bleeding into the deeper gray of dusk. The rain has eased, though not ended. Its patter grown lazy and infrequent, each droplet like a sleepy sigh against your awning. You tilt your head back, letting a single, fat drop land on your forehead. The cold shock of it a small, bright punctuation in the hush around you. The market is shifting, stalls folding inward like tired birds, merchants lifting goods and slinging them over shoulders damp with the day's labor. The fishmonger has long since packed up, his shouts replaced by the soft scrape of barrels rolling homeward. The air smells of wet stone and wood smoke now, the faintest sweetness of roasting chestnuts drifting through the dusk. You lean against the beam of your stall, feeling the ache of the day in your shoulders and the bite of cold in your fingertips. The books are quieter now, too, less about commerce, more about comfort. Each one a small island of story in the gray tide of evening. A man stops in front of your stall, his cloak patched with mismatched cloth that glows softly in the lantern light. He picks up a tiny prayer book, the pages stiff with damp but still clinging to their secrets. "For a wife who can't sleep," he says, his voice a low murmur swallowed by the hush. "She says the prayers are better than warm milk." You nod, passing it to him, your fingers brushing his, both of you sharing a brief moment of quiet understanding. He presses a brass coin into your hand, and you watch him walk away, the book tucked carefully to his chest like a promise. Historians still argue whether medieval nights were truly darker than ours, or if we've just forgotten how to see in the shadows. You look around, at the way the lanterns flicker in the wet air and the way each face is half lost to the glow, and you think, perhaps it's the same darkness but different eyes. You reach out, adjusting a volume of riddles that has grown limp in the damp, the ink bleeding softly at the edges like a secret half-whispered. A fringe tidbit slides into your mind. How some scribes would mix crushed herbs into their inks, hoping to keep the damp and the mold at bay. You run your thumb along the page and wonder what stories were written in those faint, scented lines that a child runs past, her laughter bright in the quiet, trailing a ribbon of red that bobs and weaves like a flame. She pauses just long enough to peer at your stall, her breath misting in the chill air, before darting off again. The echo of her footsteps swallowed by the rain-slick stones. You smile, feeling the edges of the day soften around you. A woman with a basket of herbs pauses, her scarf pulled tight against the chill. She lifts a bundle of lavender to her nose, the purple blooms dark against the gray, and you catch the scent, sweet and sharp, a memory of summer in the dying light. She nods to you, silent but kind, and you nod back, your hand resting on the edge of your stall as though to steady yourself against the gentle hush. The rain has slowed to a whisper now, a soft percussion that matches the rhythm of your breath. A friar passes by, his hood pulled low, and he pauses just long enough to lay a hand on the edge of your stall. "Words are a blessing," he murmurs, his voice so soft you almost doubt you heard it. You nod, watching him fade into the shadows at the edge of the square, and you feel the truth of it settle into your bones. You glance at the battered ledger you keep tucked beneath the planks, its ink smudged and the parchment soft with wet. You run a finger over the blurred lines, each one a record of the day's trades and the day's stories. A quiet testament to the way even a rainy day can leave behind something worth keeping. You close the ledger gently, your hands moving with the care of someone who knows how easily a thing can be lost to water and time. You lean back against the beam, listening to the quiet murmur of the market's last few voices, and you let your eyes close for just a moment. In the hush, you hear the rain's lullaby, soft, steady, a promise that tomorrow will come, and with it another market day, another chance to stand in the wet and the cold and offer words to the world, because here, in the quiet of the night and the hush of the rain, you find a kind of peace that no storm can wash away. The darkness deepens, a velvet curtain that seems to muffle even the rain. You stand still for a moment, listening to the soft drip from the awning's edge, the occasional muted clatter of a cart wheel rolling over a loose cobblestone. The lanterns glow softly, each one a little promise of warmth against the chill. Your breath curls in the damp air, and you tuck your hands under your cloak, seeking a bit of your own heat. The market is nearly emptied now, the square hushed as if holding its breath. Only a few figures remain, shadows that move with the slow, deliberate grace of those who know the rain is done with them. For tonight, a merchant you've seen 100 times trudges past, a bundle of wool slung over his back and a tired smile on his lips. "Another day," he says, his voice low and content in the hush. "Another story." You reply, and he nods, disappearing into the dark. You turn back to your stall, adjusting the books one last time for the night. The covers glisten in the flickering lantern light, damp but resolute. Each page a small defiance against the wet, each story a tiny island in the flood. Historians still argue whether medieval markets were truly more communal than modern ones, whether the shared struggle of rain and cold forged bonds stronger than any coin. You think you know the answer. Here in this quiet hour, a young boy with a basket of bread stops at your stall, his eyes wide and solemn. "You sell words?" he asks, as if it's a secret he's stumbled upon. "I do," you say, your voice low and warm. He nods, pulls a crust of bread from his basket, and offers it to you. "For a story," he says simply, and you take it, the bread warm and soft against your cold fingers. You flip open a small book of fables, its pages warped but still legible, and read him a tale of a fox who outwitted the rain itself. He listens, rapt, the bread clutched in one small hand, and when you're done he grins, a flash of joy in the soft gloom. "Thank you," he whispers, and you watch him vanish into the shadows, the story tucked away in his mind like a talisman. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some believed that stories told at night had more weight, that the darkness wove them deeper into the soul. You wonder if it's true, if the stories you've shared today will linger longer because of the hush and the rain. You tuck the bread into your pouch and turn your attention back to the last of your books. You tip the awning gently, sending the final trickle of water splashing to the ground, and you watch the ripples spread, the lamplight shimmering in each one like a tiny sun. A woman stops beside you, her hair tucked beneath a hood, her eyes catching the glow of the lantern. She lifts a hand, fingers brushing the cover of a book of prayers. "For my mother," she says softly, her voice gentle as the rain's lullaby. You pass it to her, and she presses a silver coin into your palm, her fingers warm in the cold air. "May it bring her comfort," you say, and she nods, her lips curved in a soft, grateful smile. She moves on, and you're left alone again, the market's slow sigh filling the space between each breath. You take a moment, standing there with the weight of the books around you, and you feel something like pride. A quiet, stubborn pride that refuses to be washed away. The rain has slowed to the gentlest of drizzles, a faint mist that hangs in the lantern light like a veil. You run a hand over the damp wood of your stall, feeling the grain of it beneath your fingertips, the roughness familiar and comforting. A friar passes by, his sandals slapping softly against the wet stone, and he raises a hand in blessing. "May your stories keep the cold at bay," he murmurs, and you bow your head in thanks. You glance at the ledger one last time, the ink smudged and the parchment wrinkled, but the names and numbers still legible. A record of the day's labors, the quiet victories, the whispered exchanges in the hush of the rain. You close it carefully, tucking it into the driest corner of the stall, and take a deep breath of the night air. The market is nearly silent now, the lanterns flickering like distant stars, the last of the voices fading into the dark. And in that quiet you stand watch, the keeper of words and stories, the quiet heart of a market that has weathered the rain and found, in the hush, a kind of peace. The night has deepened, folding the square into a patchwork of shadows and soft lamplight. You lean back against the stall, feeling the ache in your legs, the gentle stiffness of your shoulders after a day spent holding back the rain. The books are stacked now in careful piles, their covers damp but their words still intact. A quiet testament to the day's small defiance. A cool breeze stirs the edge of your cloak, carrying the scent of wet earth and the faint tang of wood smoke from a nearby brazier. The air tastes cleaner now, the sharp bite of rain softened into something almost sweet. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush of the market seep into your bones. A pair of young lovers walks past, their hands twined together, heads bent close as they share some secret too quiet for the world to hear. They pause by your stall, their eyes catching on a thin volume of verse that glows faintly in the lantern light. The girl lifts it with careful fingers, the damp pages sighing softly as they turn. "For nights like this," she says, her voice a soft, sleepy smile. You nod, passing it to her, and she slips a silver coin into your hand, its weight warm from her pocket. They drift away into the mist, their laughter weaving a thread of warmth through the cool air. You watch them go, feeling a small tug of tenderness in your chest. Even in the damp and the dark, the world still finds room for love. Historians still argue whether medieval nights were truly so silent, or if our memory has smoothed their edges into something softer. You stand there, listening to the hush broken only by the creak of a cart wheel and the soft hush of the rain, and you think, maybe it's always been this quiet, this gentle, when the world pauses to breathe. You glance down at the battered ledger, its ink smeared and pages warped but still legible. Each line a name, each smudge a memory of a bargain struck in the wet. You run your thumb over the damp cover, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day's work done. A fringe tidbit slips into your thoughts. How some merchants believed that reading by candlelight at night would invite spirits to share your stories. You smile faintly at the idea, wondering if the flickering glow of your own lantern might have drawn more than customers to your stall today. A man in a cloak the color of midnight pauses by your table, his eyes catching the gleam of a small book of riddles. "Something to pass the hours," he says, his voice a gentle murmur in the quiet. You pass it to him, your fingers brushing his as he takes it. He leaves behind a single copper coin, but his nod carries more weight than gold. He vanishes into the drifting mist, and you turn back to your stall, adjusting the last of your wares with careful hands. Your breath clouds in the chill, but your heart feels warm beneath the layers of wool and damp. The last few merchants are packing up now, the square emptying of voices but not of stories. A woman with a basket of rushlights pauses beside you, her hands red with the cold. "Your books," she says softly. "They're like a fire in the dark." You smile, feeling the truth of her words settle deep. "And your light," you say, nodding to her basket. "It's the hearth that keeps them alive." She laughs, a soft, tired sound, and moves on, her rushlights bobbing in the gloom like small, defiant stars. You watch her go, and then you turn back to your stall, your fingers tracing the rough wood, the soft pages. The rain has eased to a mist now, a hush that drapes the square in silver. You breathe deep, tasting the wet and the night, and you feel a kind of quiet triumph. Because here, in this damp square of stone and shadow, you have held your ground. You have kept the words safe, kept them alive against the slow creep of the dark. You lean back, your breath steady and your hands gentle on the books that are both your livelihood and your heart. And you whisper a small vow to the night, that tomorrow, when the rain comes again, you will be here. That tomorrow the words will still be waiting. The hour grows late, and the square begins to blur at the edges, the lamplight softening into golden smudges in the mist. You stand a little straighter, stretching your back with a quiet sigh as you watch the last of the merchants vanish into the night, their footsteps fading like the memory of a half-forgotten song. Your books are gathered now in neat stacks, each one a small testament to the day's damp defiance. You run your fingers over the spines, feeling the chill that seeps through the parchment and leather, but also the stubborn warmth of words that refuse to be silenced. The rain has slowed to a soft whisper, each droplet a gentle punctuation in the hush. A stray cat slips through the square, its coat sleek with water, eyes bright in the lamplight. It pauses by your stall, blinking up at you as if to ask why you're still here. You smile, lifting a hand in greeting, and the cat pads away, its paws silent on the wet stone. A fringed tidbit stirs in your mind. How some believed that cats carried secrets between worlds, slipping like shadows through the spaces between stories. You watch the cat vanish into the mist, and you wonder what tales it might carry in its silent, damp-footed wanderings. A young woman in a woolen shawl stops beside your stall, her eyes soft and tired. She glances over the stacks, her fingers brushing the damp edge of a thin volume of Proverbs. "For my grandmother," she says softly. "She likes to read them aloud on nights like this." You nod, wrapping the book in a scrap of linen and passing it to her with a smile. She leaves a silver coin in your palm, its warmth a small kindness in the chill. "May the words keep her company," you say, and she smiles, a flicker of light in the gray, and disappears down the narrow street. The night feels deeper now, the darkness more complete, but the lanterns still glow like embers along the edges of the square. You glance at the old woman who sells herbs, her stall packed away save for a single sprig of rosemary she's tucked behind her ear. She catches your eye and winks, a small, silent benediction. You nod, feeling a thread of camaraderie weave through the quiet. Historians still argue whether medieval marketplaces were truly places of community or of solitary commerce. But here, in this hush of shared struggle and shared survival, you know the answer lies somewhere in the laughter that echoes between the stalls and the quiet nods that pass like small promises. You reach out to adjust a volume of travel tales, the cover slick with rain but still holding its shape. You flip it open, reading a single line aloud in a whisper. The road is long, but the story endures. And you let the words linger in the air, a soft murmur that feels like a spell. A friar passes by, his sandals slapping softly on the stones. He pauses at the edge of your stall, his eyes kind beneath the shadow of his hood. "You keep the stories alive," he says, his voice low and gentle. "And the stories keep me." You reply, and he smiles, a small, bright thing in the damp dark, and then he's gone, swallowed by the hush of the night. The air tastes of wet stone and wood smoke, the faintest sweetness of something baking in a distant oven. You breathe it in, feeling it settle deep in your chest, a balm against the cold. The rain has grown so soft now it's almost part of the silence, a gentle brush of water on the skin of the world. You close your eyes for a moment, your hand resting on the edge of your stall, and you let the quiet hold you. Because here, in this small square of light and wet earth, you found a kind of peace that doesn't ask for more than your breath and your watchful heart. The market may be closing, the night drawing in tight and close, but the stories linger. The words caught in the damp air, the soft glow of lamplight, the hush of rain that promises tomorrow. You stand there a moment longer, feeling the weight of the books and the soft press of the night, and you let your breath slow, your shoulders ease. Because in this gentle hush, you are keeper of the words, and in their quiet defiance, you find your own. The mist grows thicker, wrapping the market in a silvery hush that makes every sound seem softer, every movement slower. You breathe in the damp air, your breath misting out in front of you like a ghost that refuses to drift away. The lanterns glow steady and warm, their light a kind of quiet promise that even the night can't snuff out. You lean against the beam of your stall, the rough wood cold and solid beneath your back, and you close your eyes for just a moment. The rain has all but stopped now, the last drops falling with a slow, deliberate rhythm that matches the slow, deliberate beat of your heart. You feel the day settle into your bones, the damp and the weariness mingling in a way that feels almost comforting. A man in a cloak that has seen better days stops in front of your stall, his hands tucked deep into his sleeves. He nods at you, his eyes catching the lamplight and reflecting it back like twin coins. "Long day," he says, his voice quiet as the mist. "Long day." You echo, your voice low and steady. He lifts a hand in a small salute, then moves on, his footsteps soft on the wet stones. Historians still argue whether medieval markets were driven by the clang of coin or the soft murmur of barter. But you know that tonight, it's neither. Tonight, it's the hush that binds you all together, the hush and the flicker of lanterns in the mist. You glance down at your ledger, its ink still legible in the low light, though the pages have grown soft with the damp. You run a finger down the names, each one a memory of a moment, a trade, a shared smile or sigh. A fringe tidbit stirs in your thoughts. Some believed that names written in the rain held a kind of power, a promise that would last as long as the water did. You wonder if that's true, if the names in your ledger might outlast even the chill of this night. A young woman stops beside you, her hair damp and curling in the mist. She eyes a small book of psalms, its cover dark with wet but the words still safe within. "My brothers," she says softly. "He's far away tonight. I thought, perhaps this would keep him close." You nod, passing it to her with care, the weight of the book warm in your hand. She leaves a silver penny in your palm, its edges smooth and worn. "Thank you," she whispers, and you watch her vanish into the soft dark, the psalms tucked tight against her chest. You glance at the last of your wares, the books that have weathered the day's storms and still stand ready to share their secrets. You reach out, adjusting a volume of riddles so the light catches the faded gold of its title. You smile faintly at it, this small bit of laughter that has survived the rain. The square is nearly empty now, the last of the merchants vanishing into the fog that clings to the alleys and corners like a patient ghost. The hush is deeper here, the air still and heavy with the scent of wet stone and the faintest tang of smoke from a distant hearth. You take a deep breath, feeling the cold slip past your lips and settle in your chest. But beneath the chill, there is a warmth, a quiet pride in the way you have stood your ground today, in the way you have kept the words safe and shared them, even when the world seemed determined to wash them all away. You close your eyes again, just for a moment, and you think of the stories that have passed through your hands today, the tales of saints and sinners, of foxes and crows, of laughter and loss. And you know that in each of them, there is a small, stubborn light that no rain can drown. You stand a little straighter, the last of the day's damp sinking into the folds of your cloak, and you let the hush of the market fill your ears. Because here, in this quiet hour, you are more than a seller of books. You are a keeper of memory, a guardian of the words that refuse to be lost. And in that hush, In that soft, wet breath of the night, you find a kind of peace that no storm can steal. The final flicker of twilight fades, and the square slips fully into the embrace of night. The lanterns cast their soft glow across the cobblestones, the golden light dancing on puddles that ripple with each sigh of wind. You stand quietly, the last of the day's trades done, your books stacked in small, careful piles that feel almost like prayers in the hush. A gust of chill air drifts through the square, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of roasted chestnuts and the sharper tang of damp earth. You breathe it in, feeling the weight of the day settle across your shoulders, the familiar ache of hours spent on your feet and in the rain. But there is no complaint in that ache, only a quiet satisfaction, a sense that you have earned each slow breath. A young boy with a ragged cap stops at the edge of your stall, his eyes wide in the flickering light. "Do the books sleep when the market closes?" he asks, his voice hushed as if he's afraid to break the night's spell. You smile, your fingers brushing the worn leather of a psalter as you nod. "They rest," you say softly. "But they dream too. They remember every hand that's turned their pages, every whisper of a story told in the rain." He grins, a gap-toothed flash of wonder, and darts away into the night, his laughter a bright thread that stitches the darkness together. Historians still argue whether medieval markets ended in solemn quiet or with raucous songs that echoed through the streets. You stand there in the soft hush, and you think it's both. Today, the silence is a song all its own. A merchant you know, a woman who sells beeswax candles, stops by, her basket nearly empty. She raises a hand in greeting, her fingers red from the cold. "Good night's work?" she asks, her voice warm despite the damp. You nod. "A quiet night, but a fair one." You reply. She smiles, the lines at the corners of her eyes deepening. "Quiet nights hold the best stories," she says, and you nod in agreement, watching her slip away into the soft dark. You reach for your ledger, the ink blurred from the damp but still legible. Each name, each small transaction a testament to the day's quiet triumphs. You run your thumb over the edge of the parchment, feeling the texture of it beneath your fingers, the way it still holds the memory of each word you've written. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some believed that every book sold in the rain carried a bit of the storm's spirit with it, that each word was a drop of water made solid. You like that idea, the thought of the rain's ghost lingering in the pages. A secret only the books and the night can share. A figure in a dark cloak pauses at the edge of the square, the hem of his garment trailing in the wet. He lifts a hand in silent farewell, and you return the gesture, your breath misting in the cold air. He vanishes down a narrow alley, swallowed by the fog that curls like a living thing in the lamplight. You turn back to your stall, your fingers brushing the damp wood with a gentleness that feels almost like reverence. Each book is a small promise, each page a quiet defiance against the world's slow, patient forgetting. The rain has stopped entirely now, the air soft and heavy with the hush that comes after the storm. You close your eyes for a moment, letting it settle around you, the quiet and the cold, the smell of wet stone and flickering wax. And in that stillness you find a kind of peace, the kind that lives in the quiet shuffle of pages and the warm weight of words held close. Because here, in the heart of the night and the slow sigh of the market's breath, you know that tomorrow will come, and you will be here again. Tomorrow the words will still wait. You stand a moment longer, letting the hush settle into your bones. The square has grown even quieter now, each lantern's glow softened by the thin mist that lingers like breath in the cold night. You watch the light dance on the slick stones, each flicker a promise that even the wet and the dark can't smother. A young woman in a cloak that smells of rosemary pauses beside your stall, her eyes catching on a small, battered book of Proverbs. She lifts it carefully, her fingers gentle on the damp cover. "My grandmother used to recite these to me," she says softly, her voice low as the drizzle, "on nights when the wind sounded like voices." You smile, the memory of your own grandmother's songs flickering through your mind like a warm light. "Then they're already part of you," you say. She nods, slipping a silver coin into your hand and tucking the book close to her chest. You watch her fade into the night, the scent of rosemary trailing after her like a blessing. The wind picks up, rattling the awning above you in a soft percussion that matches the beat of your heart. Historians still argue whether these market nights were all commerce or if they were also communion. A weaving of lives and words that turned each flickering light into a hearth. You stand there in the hush and think, it's both. Always both. A merchant you know, his voice hoarse from shouting over the rain, pauses to trade a tired smile with you. Still standing? He asks, his breath misting in the lamplight. Still standing. You reply, your voice low and warm in the chill. He nods once, the quiet understanding of two souls who have shared the day's damp and the day's small victories, and then he's gone, his boots scuffing softly on the stones. A fringe tidbit flickers through your thoughts. Some said that markets held their own saints, protectors of bargains and keepers of secrets, whose blessings lived in the worn wood of the stalls and the slow, patient rhythm of the crowd. You like to imagine those saints here tonight, their quiet hands turning each page you've sold, each story you've kept alive. You reach out, adjusting the books so the driest ones face outward, the spines catching the glow of the nearest lantern. Your hands move slowly, with the reverence of someone tending a shrine. Each title is a small prayer to tomorrow, a promise that even in the cold and the wet, the words endure. A man with a basket of candles passes by, the flicker of his wares dancing in the mist. He pauses, his eyes catching on the battered edges of your stall. The rain tests us all, he says softly, his voice the hush of old wood and slow-burning wax. You nod, your fingers brushing the damp wood, and teaches us how to stand. You reply. He smiles, the corners of his eyes creasing in the low light, and he moves on, his basket of flickering light weaving a path through the soft dark. You lean back against the stall, your breath slow and measured, your shoulders easing as the market's heartbeat slows around you. The hush is deeper now, the hush of the world settling in to rest. A child's laughter echoes somewhere nearby, a bright, fleeting spark in the gentle gloom, and you smile, the sound a reminder that even in the damp, there is warmth. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the quiet fill you up, and when you open them again, the square feels softer, the wet stones glowing like old silver. The last of the rain has stopped, the air cool and still. You reach for the ledger one final time, the ink faint but still clear, and you trace the names with your thumb, a record not just of coin, but of each moment shared, each word bartered, each small, stubborn hope. And in that slow, quiet moment you find a kind of peace, a promise that tomorrow will come, and with it, another market, another dawn, another chance to stand beneath the awning, to keep the words dry and the stories alive. Because here, in the hush of the night and the soft glow of the last lanterns, you know, you are the keeper of these stories, and in their quiet endurance you have found your own. The hush grows deeper still, the square's final breath drawn in as the last of the merchants slip away. You stand alone now, the damp wood of your stall solid at your back, the books stacked in gentle defiance against the quiet dark. Your breath mists in the cool air, each exhale a small, steady light in the soft gloom. The lanterns flicker and sway in the gentle breeze, their golden glow weaving threads of warmth through the mist. You reach out and adjust a single volume, a psalter, its cover cracked and worn but its words still whole. Your fingers linger on the leather, the memory of every hand that has touched it before you flickering in your mind like echoes. A fringe tidbit comes to you. Some believed that every book sold in the rain carried with it a blessing, a small piece of the storm's memory that lingered in the pages. You like that idea, the thought that your stall has been a quiet sanctuary for these blessings to gather. Each one a drop of story waiting to be shared. A young woman stops at the edge of your stall, her face half hidden in the hood of her cloak. She lifts a hand to brush back a damp lock of hair, her fingers red from the cold. A story for my mother, she says softly, her voice the hush of the night itself. You nod, passing her a slim volume of fables, the woodcuts still bright despite the day's damp. She slips a silver coin into your hand, her fingers lingering just long enough to share the warmth. May it keep her company, she murmurs, and then she's gone, her footsteps soft on the slick stones. You watch her vanish into the night, and you turn back to the books with a small smile. Each volume is a quiet defiance, each page a small light that refuses to be drowned. Historians still argue whether the medieval marketplace was more trade or tale, but you know tonight it's both. the hush of coin and the murmur of words woven together like the threads of a tapestry. The square is nearly empty now, the last few lanterns flickering like fireflies caught in the mist. You stand quietly, the damp cold settling into your bones, but your breath is steady, your hands gentle as you rearrange the last of your wares. A merchant you know, a weaver with kind eyes and a voice like soft wool, passes by, her basket empty and her smile weary. She pauses, her hand brushing the edge of your stall. "The night is kind tonight," she says, her voice low and warm. You nod, the truth of it settling in your chest like a slow-burning coal. "It is." You agree, your voice as soft as the rain that has finally fallen silent. She moves on, her footsteps lost in the hush, and you turn back to the books, each one a small promise that tomorrow will come. You reach out, tracing the worn edges of a thin volume of psalms, and you let your breath slow, the world around you soft and patient. The mist curls around your ankles like a cat, the air cool and sweet with the smell of damp stone and wood smoke. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the hush settle deep, and you think of the stories that have passed through your hands today, of saints and sinners, of foxes and fools, of prayers whispered in the rain. You open your eyes and watch the last of the lanterns sway in the dark, their light soft and steady. And you know, this is why you stay. This is why you stand in the wet and the cold, why you lift each book with careful hands and speak each word with quiet reverence. Because in this hush, in this gentle dark, the stories endure, and in their stubborn light you find your own. The market square is quiet now, each puddle reflecting the soft glow of lanterns like pools of captured moonlight. You stand in that stillness, the damp air brushing your cheek and the hush wrapping around you like a cloak. Your stall is nearly empty, the books stacked carefully in small towers that lean against one another like tired old friends. A friar in a patched robe pauses at the edge of the square, his breath steaming in the cold. He raises a hand in silent benediction, and you nod in return, the quiet gesture another thread woven into the night's slow tapestry. He vanishes down an alley, the dark swallowing his shape until only the memory of his kindness lingers. You adjust the last of your volumes, each one a small, stubborn flame in the hush. A battered treatise on herbs, a thin psalter, a volume of riddles that still smells faintly of lavender despite the damp. You touch each spine with care, your fingers gentle as you offer silent thanks to the words that have kept you company through the long, wet hours. Historians still argue whether the medieval marketplace was truly the heart of a town, or if it was only a reflection of something deeper, the quiet need to share and trade, to stand shoulder to shoulder in the cold. You think of the fishmonger's laughter, the woman's soft smile as she chose a psalm for her brother, the boy's bright wonder at a book of riddles, and you know the answer is both. A young man in a dark cloak stops in front of your stall, his face half shadowed by the flicker of a nearby lantern. "A tale to keep the night at bay?" he asks, his voice a low murmur that seems to blend with the mist. You nod and hand him a slim volume of poems, the cover damp but the words inside still shining. He offers a small coin in return, his fingers warm against yours, and then he's gone, his footsteps vanishing into the hush. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the soft drip of water from the edge of your awning, the gentle sigh of the wind through the eaves. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. How some believe the rain washed away not just the dust of the streets but the shadows of the soul, leaving behind a quiet clarity that only the night could understand. You tilt your head back and breathe in the cool air, the taste of rain and wood smoke mingling on your tongue. The square has become a different world in the hush, each flicker of light a small promise, each breath a quiet hymn. A cat slips past your stall, its coat sleek and dark, its eyes catching the lantern glow in quick, bright glints. It pauses to sniff the edge of your wooden counter, then pads away again, silent as a story waiting to be told. You smile, a small, private thing, and turn back to the books, your fingers brushing the damp wood. A woman in a pale cloak stops beside you, her eyes soft and curious. She gestures to a small, water-stained book of devotions, her lips parting in a silent question. You pass it to her without a word, and she slips a brass coin into your hand, her fingers cold but sure. "May it keep you warm," you say softly, and she nods, tucking the book into the folds of her cloak as she disappears into the night. The square has emptied now, the last of the merchants gone, the voices faded into memory. Only the hush remains, the soft breath of the night and the quiet weight of the stories you've kept safe. You lean back, your breath slow and steady, and you let the hush fill you up. Because here, in the stillness of the dark and the soft glow of the last lanterns, you know that tomorrow will come, and with it, another chance to stand watch over these words, to keep them dry and safe, to share them with those who will listen. And in that quiet promise, you find your own shelter. The square has become a gentle memory. The night's hush settled deep in your bones. You lean on the edge of your stall, the lantern's glow catching the soft edges of your breath. The last droplets of the evening's rain cling to the awning above, each one a tiny bead of light that trembles with the faintest breeze. You run a hand along the damp wood of the stall, your fingers tracing the familiar grain. Each groove and notch has been worn by years of weather and work, a quiet testament to the stories that have passed over these planks like gentle tides. You breathe in the scent of wet parchment and cold stone, a scent that feels like home in this soft dark. A young man with a scholar's satchel stops before you, his eyes shadowed but curious. He lifts a small book of riddles, its cover battered but the words inside still sharp and clear. "For the journey home," he says, his voice hushed as the night. You smile, passing it to him. "For the road and the rain," you reply. He leaves a copper coin in your palm, and you watch him vanish into the mist, the book tucked close to his chest. Historians still argue whether these late hours were the most honest part of the market day, when the trade was done and only the truth of quiet lingered. You think of the old friar's blessing, the girl's laughter, the soft hush of rain against worn stone, and you know, this is the hour when the market breathes deepest. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some believed that books left open overnight would soak up the moon's secrets, words grown luminous in the soft dark. You like to imagine that tonight, every book you've tended has caught a little of that quiet magic, their pages silvered with the night's own light. You adjust the final stack of volumes, your fingers gentle as you tuck them beneath the awning's edge. Each one is a small promise of tomorrow, a story that will still be waiting when the dawn's gray light spills over the rooftops. A gentle sigh of wind moves through the square, stirring the lanterns and the last shreds of mist. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the way the night holds its breath around you. In the hush, you think of all the lives that have brushed past your stall today. Voices low and hurried, laughter bright and quick, the quiet weight of coins and kindness shared in the damp. You open your eyes and watch the final lantern sway, its light catching in the puddles like a slow dance of gold and silver. You lean forward, your hands braced on the damp wood, and you whisper a promise to the books and to the night, that you will be here again, when the rain returns and the market wakes, that you will stand watch over these small, bright words until the last page has been turned. Because here, in the hush of the dark and the soft sigh of the world, you know that stories never truly end. They wait, patient as the rain, gentle as the night, ready to begin again. And so you gather your breath, your hands steady on the worn wood, and you let the hush settle around you like a cloak. Tomorrow will come, the market will open, the rain will return, and the stories will still be waiting. The hush has become a companion now, the last sigh of the day resting easy in your chest. You stand still, your breath slow and even, the night's soft rhythm wrapping around you like a warm, damp blanket. The square is a tapestry of flickering light and drifting mist, each puddle a quiet mirror of the world above. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the way the night's hush seeps into your bones, and when you open them again, the world seems softer, edges blurred by the glow of lanterns and the soft echo of your own heartbeat. A young woman in a pale shawl stops at your stall, her eyes catching on a small volume of parables, its cover damp but still whole. She lifts it carefully, her fingers tracing the softened leather, as if she's reading the shape of the rain in each line. "For my father," she says softly, her voice as gentle as the mist. "He says the stories keep the night warm." You nod, passing her the book with a smile that feels like a quiet promise. She leaves a silver penny in your palm, its warmth a small, shining comfort in the cool air. "May the stories keep you both," you say, and she smiles back before slipping away, her footsteps soft on the wet stones. You watch her go, the glow of her lantern fading into the mist, and you turn back to your stall, the books still bright in the flickering light. Each one is a small beacon in the hush, a promise that tomorrow will come, and with it, more voices, more laughter, more quiet kindnesses traded beneath the sigh of the rain. Historians still argue whether medieval nights were a time of fear or of gentle pause, whether the hush was a shroud or a soft cradle. You stand there in the glow of your last lantern and think, it's both. The night holds both the shadows and the stories, and in their quiet dance, you find your place. A fringed tidbit flickers in your thoughts. Some believed that the rain carried secrets in its fall, that each drop was a whisper from the clouds to the earth below. You like to think of those whispers tonight, each droplet that slid down your awning, each sigh of wind that brushed your cheek, carrying some small memory of the day, a gentle promise to return. You adjust the books one last time, your hands steady and sure, each volume a small triumph against the damp. A battered treatise on farming lore, a slender psalter, a book of riddles that still catches the light like a smile. You touch each one in turn, your fingers tracing their spines like a prayer. A man in a dark cloak pauses, his breath misting in the cool air. He nods to you, his eyes kind in the lantern glow. "May the night keep you," he says softly, and you nod in return, the quiet blessing settling around your shoulders like a second cloak. You lean back against the stall, the wood damp and familiar under your hands, and you let the hush settle deep. The market is almost silent now, only the soft drip of water from the eaves and the low murmur of the last voices fading into the dark. And in that quiet, you find a kind of peace, a slow, steady warmth that lives in the pause between each breath. Because here, in the hush of the night and the soft glow of the last light, you know, you have done what you came to do. You have kept the words safe. You have shared the stories. You have given the hush a shape and a voice. Tomorrow will come. The rain will return. And you will be here, waiting, with your hands steady and your heart gentle in the quiet dark. Because in the end, that is all any of us can offer. A quiet place, a listening ear, and a promise that even in the hush, the stories will still be waiting. The last of the lanterns flickers low, its glow a soft echo of the day's bright bustle. You watch it sway in the gentle hush, each swing a slow heartbeat that mirrors your own. The square is nearly empty now, the stones wet and gleaming in the mist, and the night's breath cool and steady on your cheek. You lean against your stall, the wood cold and damp beneath your hands. Each board is familiar, each knot and groove worn smooth by years of markets and storms. You take a moment to let that memory settle, the weight of it grounding you in the quiet dark. A young boy with a basket of kindling pauses at the edge of your stall. His breath clouds in the chill air, and his eyes are bright beneath the shadow of his hood. "Do you have a story to trade for warmth?" he asks softly, his voice no louder than the drip of water from the eaves. You smile, pulling a small book of riddles from the stack. "For a fire and a friend," you say, and he grins, slipping a thin stick of kindling into your hand. A quiet barter in the hush of the night. You watch him vanish down the alley, his basket rattling softly with each step. Historians still argue whether medieval markets were driven by need or by the quiet hunger for connection. You think of the boy's bright eyes, the small kindness of his trade, and you know the answer is both. Always both. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some believed that the glow of a lantern at night could carry a wish, that each flicker was a prayer sent up on a breath of warm air. You glance at the last of your lanterns, its light soft and steady, and you wonder what wishes might drift out of your little stall tonight. You adjust the final stack of books, your hands gentle and sure. A slender volume of ballads, its pages still faintly scented with the lavender once pressed between them. A small treatise on the humors, its script blurred at the edges but the words still clear. A psalter that has seen more storms than saints, its cover soft with wear. You touch each one like a benediction, your breath slow and even in the hush. The night's quiet has settled deep now, each breath a soft promise that tomorrow will come, and with it, the bright murmur of voices and the soft laughter of new stories waiting to be told. A young woman in a cloak of deep blue stops at your stall, her eyes tired but warm. She glances over the last of your books and picks up the ballads, her fingers brushing the damp cover like a caress. "For a song on a quiet night," she says, her voice a soft thread in the hush. You nod, and she slips a copper penny into your hand, its weight warm and solid. May it bring you comfort, you say, and she smiles, her breath clouding in the lamplight before she disappears into the night. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the day in your bones and the slow, steady beat of the night's hush in your chest. The square is empty now, the last voice is gone, but the quiet feels gentle, not lonely. A soft breath of peace in the dark. You turn back to your stall, your fingers resting on the final stack of books, and you let the hush settle deeper. Because here, in the soft glow of the last lantern and the quiet sigh of the night, you know, the stories have found their way. Each page a small light in the dark, each word a promise that even in the hush, we are never truly alone. Tomorrow will come, the market will wake, the rain will return, and the stories will still be waiting. The square has grown still as a held breath, the night wrapping each cobblestone in the soft hush of mist. You stand in the glow of the last lantern, the light a warm pool in the cool dark. The books are stacked in careful piles, each one a small, quiet triumph against the wet. Your breath clouds in the air, a gentle rhythm that matches the sway of the lantern above. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush settle in your chest, the weight of the day easing into something that feels almost like peace. A man in a cloak the color of midnight stops in front of your stall, his boots silent on the wet stones. He lifts a hand in greeting, his eyes catching the light of the lantern and glinting with quiet warmth. A story for the road, he says softly, his voice a low murmur that seems to blend with the mist. You nod, reaching for a small, battered volume of fables. The cover is soft with wear, the pages damp but still whole. You pass it to him, your fingers brushing his in the exchange. He leaves a silver coin in your palm, and you watch him fade into the dark, the book tucked close to his chest. Historians still argue whether medieval markets ended in a rush of laughter or a hush of weariness. You stand there in the quiet and think, perhaps it's both. The night holds space for both the bright echoes of laughter and the soft sigh of silence. A fringe tidbit drifts through your mind. How some believed the night air carried secrets, that each breath of mist was a whisper of things unseen. You like that idea, the thought that the hush holds its own kind of story, one that seeps into the bones and lingers long after the last lantern is snuffed out. That a young boy passes by, his eyes bright beneath the shadow of his hood. He glances at the stack of books, his lips parting in a small, quiet smile. Do they sleep when the square is empty? He asks, his voice a soft question in the hush. You smile back, your breath a slow exhale in the cool air. They rest, you say gently, but they dream too. He grins, a flash of wonder in the soft dark, and then he's gone, his laughter a small, bright echo in the hush. You adjust the final stack of books, your fingers brushing the worn leather spines like a promise. Each one a small island of story in the sea of the night, each page a quiet testament to the stubborn endurance of words. A woman in a woolen shawl pauses, her hands tucked deep in the folds of her cloak. She nods to you, her smile weary but warm. Tomorrow, she says softly, and you nod in return, the word a quiet vow in the hush. Tomorrow. The promise of it settles deep in your chest, a slow, steady glow that refuses to be dimmed by the damp or the dark. Tomorrow, the market will wake again, and you will be here, your hands gentle and your breath slow, ready to stand watch over the stories that refuse to be washed away. You lean back against the stall, your eyes half closed as you let the hush seep deeper. The square is empty now, the last of the voices gone, but the quiet is a comfort, not a loneliness. A soft blanket of peace in the cool night. You touch the edge of the last book, your fingers tracing the worn leather with a tenderness that feels like a prayer. Because here, in the hush of the night and the slow breath of the world, you know, the stories endure, the words wait. And so do you. The last traces of evening have vanished, leaving the square wrapped in the soft, heavy darkness of true night. You stand in the glow of the last lantern, its light a small, golden promise against the deep hush. The books are tucked close now, their worn covers dark and quiet in the flickering glow. You rest your hand on the stall's edge, the wood damp and familiar under your palm. The night air tastes of rain and wood smoke, of damp earth and the faint, sweet memory of lavender that clings to the edges of the market. You breathe it in, a slow, steady breath that fills your chest and eases the ache of the day. A friar in a cloak that glimmers with wet steps out of the shadows, his sandals quiet on the slick stones. He lifts a hand in blessing, his voice a low murmur that carries in the hush. The night is gentle, he says softly, and you nod, feeling the truth of it settle deep. The night is kind. You reply, your voice no louder than the sigh of the lantern's flame. Historians still argue whether medieval nights were truly so quiet, or if memory has softened them into something sweeter. You stand there in the hush and think. The quiet is real. The night is soft. And in its gentle dark, the day's small stories find their final shape. A fringe tidbit flickers through your thoughts. Some believed that to close a book at night was to trap a dream inside. A small, secret magic that lived between the pages until dawn. You touch the edge of a battered psalter, your fingers tracing the curve of the spine, and you think of all the dreams you've kept safe tonight. A young woman pauses beside your stall, her cloak drawn tight around her shoulders. She lifts a hand to brush her hair back, her eyes catching the light of the lantern. For a father who cannot sleep, she says softly, her voice a thread of quiet in the hush. You pass her a slim book of prayers, its pages soft with damp, and she slips a silver coin into your hand, her fingers warm despite the cold. May it bring him rest, you say, and she smiles, a small, tired light in the dark, before she turns and disappears into the mist. You watch her go, your breath a slow, steady cloud in the cool air. The night is still around you, the last echoes of the market's laughter and trade swallowed by the hush. You lean back against the stall, your hands gentle on the final stack of books, and you let the quiet settle in your chest. The last of the rain has fallen, each drop a memory that lingers on the eaves and the stones. You tilt your head back, letting the night fill your vision. The glow of the lantern, the soft mist that curls like a cat around your boots, the faint glimmer of stars that blink in and out of sight. A man in a cloak that smells of wood smoke and damp earth passes by, his boots muffled in the quiet. He lifts a hand in greeting, his fingers brushing the air like a benediction. May the stories keep you warm, he says, and you nod in return, the words a soft glow in your chest. You glance at the final ledger, the ink blurred but the names still clear, each one a promise, a small testament to the day's patient trade. You touch it with a reverence that feels like prayer, and you whisper a quiet vow. Tomorrow, you will return. Tomorrow, the market will wake, and the words will be here waiting. And so will you. You close your eyes for a moment, your breath slow and even, the hush deep in your bones. Because here, in the last glow of the lantern and the gentle hush of the night, you know, the stories endure. The words remain, and in their quiet, stubborn light, you find your own. The square is empty now, the hush complete and soft as a blanket. You stand in the glow of the last lantern, the flicker of its light a gentle promise that even the dark has a heartbeat. The air smells of rain-soaked stone and cold earth, the last threads of wood smoke drifting in the night's gentle breath. You rest your hand on the edge of your stall, feeling the damp grain of the wood under your fingertips. It's a comfort, the weight of it grounding you in the soft dark. You glance at the stacks of books, battered volumes that have weathered the day's damp with quiet dignity. Each one is a small island of story, a stubborn defiance of the rain's gentle hunger. A young man in a cloak of midnight blue stops at the edge of the square, his boots silent on the wet stone. He pauses, his breath a soft cloud in the cool air. A story to keep the night company? He asks, his voice no louder than the hush itself. You reach for a thin book of ballads, the pages limp but the words inside still bright. For the road, you say softly, and he takes it, his fingers brushing yours in the exchange. He leaves a copper penny in your palm, and then he's gone, his silhouette swallowed by the gentle dark. Historians still argue whether the medieval night was a time of fear or of gentle wonder. But here, in the hush, you know it's both. The dark holds its secrets, but it also cradles the small, warm light of each story kept alive. A fringe tidbit flickers through your thoughts. Some believed the rain's last droplets carried wishes, each one a quiet promise made to the night. You like that thought, the idea that the hush holds not just silence, but the soft, patient murmur of hope. A woman passes by, her shawl wrapped tight against the chill. She pauses, her eyes catching on a battered volume of Proverbs. She lifts it gently, her fingers soft on the damp cover. "For a mother who misses the sun," she says, her voice a low murmur in the hush. You pass her the book, and she slips a silver coin into your hand, her smile warm as she fades into the soft dark. You lean back against the stall, your breath slow and steady, and let the hush settle around you. The market is gone now, only the quiet remains, gentle, patient, alive with the slow rhythm of your own heart. The last of the lanterns flickers and dims, the glow soft and warm in the cool air. You watch it sway, a final, stubborn flame that refuses to die. And you know that tomorrow it will be here again, that you will be here again, that the rain and the night will come, and the words will still be waiting, because here, in the hush of the dark and the slow breath of the world, you are the keeper of these small, bright stories. And in their quiet endurance, you find your own. You close your eyes, your hand resting on the final stack of books, and you let the hush settle deeper, because tomorrow will come, and with it, the promise of another day, another chance to stand in the soft dark and share the words that refuse to be forgotten. The square is silent, the last traces of the day's clamor carried away by the gentle hush of the night. You stand in the glow of the final lantern, the light a soft halo that turns each breath into a small, shining promise. The market's pulse has slowed to a whisper, the damp air cool and sweet on your lips. You lean back against your stall, your fingers tracing the edges of the books you've stacked with careful hands. Each one is a quiet testament to the stories that have passed through your fingers today. Stories of laughter and sorrow, of saints and shadows, of foxes and fools. In the hush, they feel more alive than ever. A young girl with a basket of herbs pauses at the edge of the square, her eyes wide and solemn in the flickering light. She glances at your stall, then at the final book you hold, a thin volume of riddles that still smells faintly of lavender and damp parchment. "For a sister," she says softly, her voice no louder than the mist. "She cannot sleep without a story." You smile, passing her the book with a gentle nod. She leaves a small coin in your hand, her fingers warm in the cool night. "May it keep her dreams bright," you say, and she smiles back, a small, quiet light in the hush. Historians still argue whether these quiet exchanges were the soul of the medieval market, or merely its final breath. You stand there in the hush and think, they are both. The clink of coin and the soft murmur of words, each one a heartbeat in the long night. A fringe tidbit drifts through your mind. Some believed that stories told at night carried a special weight, that the hush of the dark gave each word a deeper echo. You think of that as you run your hand over the final stack of books, your fingers lingering on the soft, worn covers. A man in a dark cloak stops, his breath a quiet sigh in the cool air. He lifts a hand in silent greeting, his eyes catching the soft glow of the lantern. "Tomorrow," he says, his voice low and kind. "Tomorrow, the words will still be here." You nod, the promise settling in your chest like a warm coal. "Tomorrow," you echo, your voice a soft vow in the hush. The square is empty now, the last of the footsteps faded into the gentle dark. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush settle around you like a blanket. The damp air carries the faint scent of wood smoke and rain, the memory of laughter and the quiet rhythm of trade. You open your eyes, your breath slow and steady, and you know, the night holds its own stories. The hush is its own music. And in this soft, patient quiet, you have found your own small, bright light. You reach for the final book, your fingers brushing the worn leather spine, and you whisper a quiet promise to it and to the night. Tomorrow, the rain will return. The market will wake. The words will still be here, waiting. And so will you. The night has grown soft around you. The hush a gentle cradle for the stories that linger in the damp air. You stand in the glow of the last lantern, the light warm against the cool hush, and you watch as the mist drifts through the square like a slow, patient ghost. Your stall is nearly bare now, the last few books stacked close, each one a quiet promise that tomorrow will come. You run your fingers over the worn leather spines, feeling the slow, steady pulse of the night in each breath. A woman in a cloak that smells of rosemary and rain stops beside you, her eyes bright in the soft light. She gestures to a thin volume of prayers, her smile a small, gentle thing. For a friend who believes in the kindness of the night, she says, her voice low and warm in the hush. You pass it to her, the weight of the book familiar in your hands. She leaves a silver coin in your palm, her fingers lingering just a moment longer, a small warmth in the cool night. May it bring her peace, you say softly, and she nods, slipping away into the gentle dark. You watch her vanish, the last glow of her lantern a soft flicker in the mist, and you turn back to the books, the hush settling deeper in your chest. Historians still argue whether the medieval night was a time of rest or of quiet labor, of soft prayer or hidden laughter. You stand there in the hush and think. It was all of those, woven together in the slow rhythm of the dark. A fringe tidbit slips through your thoughts. Some believed that the final hour of the market was the most sacred, that the hush itself was a prayer offered up to the quiet night. You like that thought, the idea that in the soft dark, every breath and every heartbeat is a kind of blessing. You tilt your head back, the mist cool on your skin, and you breathe in the scent of wet stone and wood smoke. The market has fallen silent now, the last voice is gone, but the quiet feels warm, not empty. A gentle embrace that holds the weight of every story you've shared today. A man in a dark cloak passes by, his boots soft on the slick stones. He glances at your stall, his eyes warm and knowing in the lantern light. You keep the night, he says softly, and you smile, the words a quiet light in your chest. I keep the stories. You reply, and he nods, his breath a soft cloud in the hush before he slips away. You lean back against the stall, your breath slow and even, and you let the hush settle deeper. The night is soft around you, the gentle quiet of a world at rest. And in that hush you find your own quiet strength. Because here, in the last flicker of the lantern and the slow breath of the night, you are the keeper of these small, bright stories, the quiet guard of words that refuse to be lost, the patient breath in the hush. Tomorrow will come, the market will wake, the rain will return, and the words will still be here, waiting. The lantern light has grown dim, a final soft glow in the cool hush of the night. You stand quietly, your breath a steady rhythm in the stillness, the damp chill of the stones at your feet grounding you to the moment. The market has become a memory, the echoes of voices and laughter slipping away like mist in the gentle dark. You run your fingers over the last of your books, their spines cool and worn beneath your touch. Each one is a quiet promise, a small, stubborn light that has weathered the damp and the dark. You adjust them gently, the gesture a small benediction for the stories they hold. At a woman in a cloak the color of midnight pauses in front of your stall, her eyes soft and thoughtful in the fading light. She lifts a hand, her fingers brushing the edge of a thin volume of psalms. For a grandmother who believes the night holds its own prayers, she says, her voice a gentle hush in the soft dark. You nod, passing her the book with a smile that feels warm even in the chill. She slips a silver coin into your hand, her touch light and kind. May it keep her company, you say, and she smiles back, the small light of it a promise in the hush before she slips away. Historians still argue whether these final hours were the quiet end of the market's day or the first breath of something new. You stand there in the hush and think. Perhaps they are both. The last sigh of the old day, and the soft promise of dawn just beyond the edge of the dark. A fringe tidbit flickers through your thoughts. Some believed that every lantern left to burn in the night was a light for wandering souls, a gentle guide home in the quiet dark. You watch your own lantern sway softly, its glow warm and patient, and you wonder what small, lost stories might be watching from the mist. A young boy passes by, his eyes bright in the soft glow. He glances at the last of your books, his breath quick and quiet. Do they sleep when the night is done? He asks, his voice no louder than the sigh of the lantern's flame. You smile, your breath slow and warm in the cool air. They rest, you say softly, but they dream too. He grins, a quick, bright flicker in the hush, and then he's gone, his laughter a gentle echo in the stillness. You lean back against the stall, your hands resting on the final stack of books, and you let the hush settle in your chest. The mist curls around your ankles like a soft cat, the night's breath cool and sweet. The square is silent now, the last of the voices faded, but the quiet is not empty. It's full of the day's memories, of laughter and quiet kindness, of small trades and the gentle endurance of words. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the hush wrap around you like a cloak, and you let your breath slow. Because here, in the final glow of the lantern and the gentle sigh of the night, you know, the stories endure. The words remain, and in their quiet, patient light you find your own. Tomorrow will come. The rain will return, and the words will still be waiting. And so will you. The square is a memory of water and light, the last of the mist drifting low and slow around your boots. You stand in the glow of the final lantern, its flickering light a gentle echo of the day's quiet trades and soft laughter. Your breath is slow and steady, each exhale a small, warm glow in the cool hush. You adjust the final stack of books, your fingers gentle as you smooth the damp edges of the covers. Each one a small island of words, a quiet testament to the stubborn hope that lives in every page. You glance at them in the lantern's glow, and you feel a small, steady pride bloom in your chest, because they have weathered the rain. And so have you. A young woman in a cloak of dark green stops beside your stall, her eyes soft and bright in the gentle light. She lifts a hand to brush a strand of hair from her face, her fingers leaving tiny droplets of rain shimmering in the glow. "For a brother who waits for dawn," she says softly, her voice a quiet thread in the hush. You pass her a thin volume of tales, the leather cool and soft beneath your fingers. She slips a silver coin into your palm, her touch warm and sure. "May it bring him light," you say, and she nods, her smile small and real in the soft dark. She disappears into the hush, her lantern a soft glow that fades into the mist, and you turn back to your stall, your breath steady and calm. Historians still argue whether the night was the time of fear or of soft wonder, of hushed prayers or whispered laughter. You stand there in the hush and know, it is all of these, and more. The quiet at the end of the market's day holds every voice that has passed by, every trade and every gentle promise that a fringe tidbit drifts through your mind. Some believed that the final trades of the night carried the weight of all that had come before, that each last exchange was a blessing offered to the dark. You touch the edge of the last book, your fingers tracing the curve of the spine like a quiet prayer that a man in a cloak of midnight blue passes by, his boots soft on the wet stones. He lifts a hand in silent greeting, and you nod in return, the gesture small but certain. The hush is deep around you, the mist curling like breath in the cold air. You glance at the square, at the empty stalls and the quiet glow of the final lanterns, and you feel a quiet pride settle deep in your bones. Because here, in this hush, you have stood your ground. You have kept the words safe. You have offered them to the night, and the night has held them close. You close your eyes for a moment, your breath slow and calm. The square is silent, but the hush is not empty. It is full of the soft echo of the day's stories, of each voice and each small kindness shared in the gentle dark. Tomorrow will come. The market will wake. The rain will return. And the words will still be waiting. And so will you. The hush has become complete now, the final breath of the market slipping into the soft sigh of the night. You stand alone in the glow of the last lantern, its flicker a slow, gentle heartbeat in the cool dark. The square is empty, the stones slick with the memory of rain, the quiet deep and patient. You rest your hand on the edge of the stall, your fingers gentle on the worn wood. The final stack of books waits there, the last small promise of the day's trades. Each one a story held safe against the night's slow breath, each one a testament to the quiet strength that lives in every page. A young woman in a cloak the color of deep forest stops at the edge of the square, her breath a soft cloud in the hush. She lifts her hand in greeting, her eyes bright in the lantern light. "A story for the dawn," she says softly, her voice a promise in the quiet. You pass her a slim volume of psalms, the cover worn but the words still whole. She leaves a silver coin in your palm, her fingers warm against the cool metal. "May it keep the night gentle," you say, and she smiles, her breath a soft echo in the hush before she slips away. Historians still argue whether these final moments of the market were the end or the beginning, the last breath of the day or the first quiet promise of tomorrow. You stand there in the hush and think, they are both. Each word a quiet bridge between what was and what will be. A fringe tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some believed that the night's last trades carried the weight of all that came before, that the final coins and final stories offered up in the hush would echo in the dark until the dawn. You like that thought, the quiet magic of it, the way it weaves the night into something gentle and alive. You tilt your head back, the cool air sweet on your skin, and you let your breath slow. The hush wraps around you like a cloak, each exhale a soft promise that the words will still be waiting when the sun returns. You reach out to the last of the books, your fingers brushing the worn leather spine, and you let the hush settle in your bones. Tomorrow will come. The rain will return. The market will wake, and with it, the quiet murmur of voices and the soft laughter of new stories waiting to be told. And you will be here. The words will still be waiting, and in that soft, patient hush, you find your own quiet promise. That you will be the keeper of these stories, the quiet breath that guards the words in the dark, because in the end, that is what matters most, the gentle hush, the quiet breath, and the stories that endure. As the last breath of night settles in the square, you lean back against your stall and let your eyes drift closed. The hush is soft now, each heartbeat a slow, steady promise in the cool dark. You feel the damp chill of the night, but it's a gentle weight, a slow sigh that eases the ache of the long day. The lanterns have burned low, their light a soft glow that flickers and fades but never fully dies. You watch the last of their golden shimmer, each glimmer a small, stubborn spark that refuses to be swallowed by the hush. You breathe in the quiet, the scent of wet stone and the memory of rain, and you let it settle deep in your chest. The books are stacked close now, each one a small island of words waiting for the dawn. You rest your hand on the final volume, the leather cool and worn beneath your touch, and you let your breath slow. The hush is deep here, but it's not empty. It's full of the day's soft laughter, the gentle murmur of trade, and the quiet echo of stories shared in the rain. You close your eyes and let your breath ease, the hush a soft cradle that rocks you gently. You know that tomorrow will come, the rain will return, and the words will still be waiting. And in that promise you find a kind of peace, a soft, warm light that flickers steady and sure in the dark. So let the hush hold you. Let your breath slow and your shoulders ease. Let the night cradle you in its quiet, patient way. Because here, in the hush of the dark, you are safe. Here, the stories endure. And here, you find your rest.